This is the plaintiff, Seth Goldfarb. He says he brought his computer to the defendant's repair shop for a keyboard replacement, and he broke the computer, rendering it inoperable. That's right. He brought the defendant a working computer with a couple of missing keyboard keys, and when he worked on it, he damaged it beyond repair. The defendant refuses to refund him the purchase price he paid for his computer, and he's here suing him for the $1,900 he says he's owed. This is the defendant, Kent Johnson. He says replacing the keyboard is a straightforward process, and the only mistake he made was not turning the guy's computer on before he worked on it to make sure it functioned properly. Once it didn't turn on, he sent it to a specialist and was told the motherboard was fried by someone else. He can't believe the plaintiff's trying to pull a fast one on him, and he refuses to pay him a penny. He's accused of frying a guy's laptop.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says he brought his computer into the defendant's repair shop for a new keyboard, and the guy broke the thing. But the defendant says that he didn't break anything. It came in that way. It's the case of laptop dance.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Mr. Goldfarb, what happened?
Well, I brought my computer in, Judge, to have the keyboard replaced. And when I went back later that day, it was a non-functioning keyboard.
Did you receive any phone calls from him in the meantime?
I did. He called to ask me if it was a working computer when I brought it in. And
what did you say? Why would I put a new keyboard on a non-working computer and not mention it? I imagine.
The long and short of it, yeah.
Yeah. And then what does he say?
He was sympathetic. He tried going back through the computer to see what was wrong with it. And when he realized it wasn't working at all, he offered to send it somewhere else to have it fixed.
On his dime.
Mm-hmm.
So he sends it somewhere else, and then what does he tell you?
About a month later, 3 weeks or so later, it came back with the diagnosis that it was completely fried. Several parts were beyond repair, and they were unable to get parts to replace them. So.
Okay. So how do you two leave it? What happens? What do you say to him?
It was kind of a circular conversation. I asked him how we could fix this, kind of alluding to the idea that he would help out in some way for damaging the computer, and he just kept running circles around me.
And saying what?
He was flabbergasted and astonished at how something like this could happen, and he's never had anything like this happen in his 25 years of business.
And what? How did you guys leave it?
I left the computer with him. I went back a few weeks later, a week or so later, and picked it up after I kind of cleared my head and decided what to do.
And what was it you decided to do? Sue him?
Ultimately, yes.
Right. All right. So now, Mr. Johnson, tell me your version of these things.
Oh, he brought in the computer. He said it was the keyboard trouble, and he brought in the keyboard with it. I replaced the keyboard. When I put it back together and hit the button to turn it on, it didn't turn on, so I called him, and he said, no, he was working when he brought it in. I said, well, I don't know what I could have possibly done that did this, so I took it back apart, and I checked every connection, and I have no idea how it didn't work. So I offered to send it out to someone who could figure it out. I figured it must be a fuse or something somewhere. Those fuses are microscopic. I can't do them here. And they said, no, the board was bad. And not only that, but the LCD was bad, which I have no idea how that could have happened.
Well, didn't you? I mean, when someone brings in a computer, don't you have them power it up? And I mean, I know that's what the...
Yeah.
You didn't do that?
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. I did not check it before I took out the battery. I just started the process.
Are you sure you took out the battery?
I'm sure I took out the battery, yeah.
So you then end up sending it out because you feel bad, and you pay to have it sent out and have it investigated. And what, when they tell you... Not
really.
Okay, so you didn't pay?
I paid shipping.
Okay. And it gets investigated. They tell you what's wrong with it. And then what's the plan? Because if he brought you a working computer and then in your care the thing somehow shorts, what's the game plan? Just tough for him?
No, I mean, that's what I keep telling Seth. I'm not gonna like negotiate with myself. I mean, what do you want? Oh, I want a new laptop. Well, I'm not gonna buy you a new laptop. I mean, I didn't say this to him, but I'm not going to sit here and say, how about half a laptop? I mean, you know.
That's kind of what the negotiation is.
Back to the People's Court. The question, did the defendant burn out the computer's motherboard, or is this just the case where plaintiff's trying to get something for nothing? Let's go back to the courtroom and find out.
You're suing Mr. Goldfarb for the cost that you paid for it, plus the cost of the keyboard, plus tax of $100, which I don't know where you got that. Remember, if it's the value of the item at the time of the loss, and you are talking about a laptop that was by then how old? 1 year?
It was about a year old.
Yeah, not that old, but it had a broken keyboard or whatever that you were having fixed. So in other words, my job is to assess the value of this item, its depreciated value, at the time of the loss, if it were functioning correctly, which would include a good keyboard. Mr. Goldfarb, you paid $1,600 for the computer a year ago. You paid $200 for the keyboard. I have to depreciate it, you know.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah. You know, this isn't a criminal case. I don't have to absolutely know what happened. I just have to look at the facts, and in a civil case, the standard of proof is much less than in a criminal case. In a criminal case, it's also not absolutely know what happened. In a criminal case, it's beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. But in a civil case, it's by a preponderance of the evidence. You and I both know there's no way he brings that thing in for you to change a keyboard if the thing isn't working. Because what would be the point? You'd have a keyboard on a computer that's not working. He'd tell you, hey, and it's not working. Find out what's wrong with it, diagnose it. That's what he would say. Also, kind of shame on you for not making him do what the genius desk always makes me do, which is turn on your computer. All right, you know, and then you have to turn it on and show them that it works. That's a habit. It's good habits. Little tiny good habits are what keep us out of trouble. So I am going to order the plaintiff to be recompensed for the loss of the computer, $1,400. Good luck, folks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the plaintiff is going to get $1,400 for that computer, not the $1,900 he had been seeking. Mr. Johnson, what do you think you've learned from this, other than you got to test the computer when it comes in with the customer, I suppose, there with you, right?
That's absolutely right, and I've kicked myself 100 times for not doing that this time.
Yeah, I'll bet you have. No kidding. I'll bet you have. All right. Well, I'm sorry, but that's it. $1,400. Hey, that's better than $1,900. Okay. Good luck to you, Mr. Goldfarb. You feel sorry for him or not? Maybe you don't. What's your reaction?
I don't know. I sense his reputation is pretty solid, and he's not going to really change much about who he is. I don't know. I'm just glad to get restitution.
All right. That'll bring this computer case to a close. Let's see what Harvey has to say. Harvey?
I want to spend a couple of seconds just kind of reviewing something we've talked about before. The standard of proof in a civil case. Everybody thinks, oh, you have to prove, like in a criminal case, guilt beyond under reasonable doubt. You do not. All you have to prove is a preponderance of evidence. That means just slightly tipping the scales. 51-49. That's the burden of proof. If you can meet that burden of proof in a civil case, you're the winner.
What subject in school was your best subject?
Well, I was...
All of them?
Yeah, I was a little nerd, so...
Poindexter, you? All right.
But I guess the one I enjoyed the most would have been creative writing, English.
Yeah. Very good. You're a pretty good writer, I got to say.
No, you're a better writer than I am. I'm just a more creative writer.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
You
know all the rules.
Right,
and
the grammar.
You're like, your syntax is wrong here. No, you need a comma here, put a comma there.
Not a good writer. That's kind of what it is, I guess.
What was your best subject?
I'm going to say Spanish was my best subject.
That is actually true.
I actually never got a grade in Spanish that was less than, 98, if it was a number grade.
Yeah, and you grew up in Buffalo, where whoever was learning a second language was learning French because they were right on the border.
The popular one, you're right.
Right, with French Canada. And you were always like the little John Wayne of Buffalo. You just loved all things Hispanic.
You know what? My father
for me.
My father was the captain of the 7th Precinct in Buffalo, and he had a very large Spanish-speaking population in that precinct, more than other areas of the city. And he kind of saw it you know, he had a good vision for that. And when it was time for me to choose a language, he's the one who guided me that way. He said, listen, this is the language you're going to have to know, and we're going to have, you know, larger Spanish-speaking populations in this country. And that was in like 1973.
That was pretty prescient of it.
And it turned out to be a good idea.
Yeah,
about that.
especially because of who you ended up with.
Right.